Good morning and welcome. This is Cheche, the show where opinion counts, and we're live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwaka Mimo. The two main rivals in the August general election, Jubilee and NASA, started the week by launching their manifestos. They each put on quite a show of declaring their policies and intentions if they were to form the next government. Now, opinion polls broadly agree that Kenyans are most concerned about election-related violence, and we did discuss that last week with the government spokesman. Kenyans are also concerned about the cost of living, insecurity, unemployment, and famine. I'm sure healthcare is now a major concern too, given the ongoing nurses' strike. So we're going to look at how both Jubilee and NASA plan to respond to Kenyan concerns with today's guests. We should have with us Professor Karuti Kanyinga of the University of Nairobi joining us later. He's stuck in traffic. But we do have with us now Raphael Obonyo, a UN Person of the Year and Youth Advocate. As always, we have the panel of Mutegin Jao and Charles Odhiambo, both of Royal Media Services. Good morning and welcome to the show. So it was quite a show. Whether it was Jubilee or NASA, one show might have been a bit better than the other. But what stood out for you in the manifestos? I'll start with you, Raphael.
I think, thanks first of all for hosting me. I think we must also praise Jubilee and NASA for sort of releasing their manifestos, because it takes, I mean, it's a bold step, and now gives us a basis to engage them, and it's also a step towards issue-based.
Isn't it a matter of course, though? I mean, we expect people to lay out their manifestos. Why are we praising them for doing what they're supposed to do?
I think in a continent where elections are held without any document like a manifesto, we know of many countries that have held elections in this part of the world without unleashing manifestos. And so that they've unleashed manifesto, it means that now we have a basis for engaging them sort of on an issue basis. We've had them talk about these issues. Now we have sort of a document on which we can say, look, this is what you're promising. Why are you saying articulating something different during public rallies? So
although we do have a long tradition, I think, in Kenya of releasing manifestos, what stood out in particular for you with these manifestos, Jubilee and NASA?
I think for NASA, I think for me is the issue of corruption. I think they want to fight corruption, and young people have expressed really concern in terms of corruption. We lose a lot of jobs and opportunities as a result of corruption. NASA has come out to say, look, we are going to deal with this.
I don't know that you're right, because but even Jubilee says they're going to fight corruption.
Yeah, but I think NASA came out boldly to try and tackle that. That was a key thing. And the other key thing that stands out on NASA's side is youth, but youth in terms of investing in creative economy. You know, not the usual of youth enterprise fund. I think they want to invest in creative economy. You know, arts, culture, and sports, because that's a new area. On the other side, I think Jubilees, they're also still focusing on the youth and jobs. They're even putting numbers. I think NASA didn't put numbers in terms of the jobs they hope to create every year. I think they're more cautious. Jubilee have put numbers 1.3 million, 1.5 million.
We'll get can we unpack it? We're unpacking it for our
every year. We have a basis to hold them accountable based on the numbers. And I think I've looked at both manifestos. I think the Jubilee manifesto, they're obsessed with numbers. They have a lot of figures and numbers. On the other side, NASA's manifesto, they are trying to be cautious in terms of, they're very broad in terms of what they pledge and what they promise, but both of them focus on you.
I'll come to you panelists now. You know, did anything stand out for you? You've seen lots of manifestos in your time, Mutegin, and you seem rather unimpressed, but was there anything that stood out for you?
No.
Nothing stood out.
There is just this promise of notes, and I'm very skeptical about whatever these promises have been made. If, for instance, we give the example of numbers of employment, they promised a figure in 2013.
Actually, 800,000.
Or even if we say 500,000.
million actually, and what we've achieved is just over 800,000.
What has happened? What has happened? Is there more employment or more unemployment? So this is, to me, is nothing.
Charles, did anything stand out for you?
Yes, the fact that both divides shared virtually everything that they want to present to 190. The only difference I noticed was the semantics and the use of language. Otherwise, it's all the same. Jubilee talking about a general supplies agency to curb corruption and graft. NASA talking about we're going to fight graft and make sure nobody does business with the government. Same old things. I think a bit boring.
Well, this is a weary panel we're dealing with. What about the tone, style? You're saying that the language is pretty much similar, or what are you saying?
Only the language is different. Whatever they were saying is more or less the same. Style, yeah, image is everything. Start with NASA. You'd think somebody told them at 3 p.m. yesterday that you guys have to present a manifesto at 7:30. That was patch up. That was disorganization. That was disorder. From the sound to the video clips to the presentation to the confusion, it was just on the other side. And that was the show itself. Yes. What about the manifesto?
One thing I need to point out.
It's not
before NASA. Before NASA brought those clips. Before they brought those clips. So in the social media, we will know who is going to, who has been told to do what. I saw somebody with a mobile phone saying, next one, you are going to see so and so, being told they have been coached what to say. It was always there. Okay. Which was rather sad.
So on the NASA side, a very shoddy show.
Yeah.
The document itself is, I mean, it's not reader friendly. I could say that today, tomorrow, and yesterday. It's not reader friendly.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the code manifesto was quite user friendly. I think it was something that anyone could pick and read, and you could really tell this is how they plan to do this. You know, it was quite developed. So I think they should have just picked the code manifesto and just added a few things. And this other document is a bit technical, and I would say as a person sort of associated with the United Nations, it looks like a United Nations document, quite technical. You know, that language sounds more like a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where you want to deal and tackle everything. On the other side, I think the Jubilee Manifesto, someone was trying to develop sort of a memoir and an album, try to fit all the pictures that the president has had during different functions, you know, and they're trying to throw in figures left, right, and center. So,
what do you think? How do you compare the documents in terms of style and presentation?
I think the presentation, there was more grammar in the Jubilee presentation. There was more organization. But when you look at the, as we said, when you look at the NASA one, it was chaotic.
That's very true. So if we then come to the Jubilee one, because Raphael, you're being fairly critical of Jubilee, do you not find though that in terms of presentation, because they talk about their achievements, you can't scoff at that. On the NASA side, as an opposition, they could have listed their achievements. They did not. They talked about their plan, their vision. You don't quite see that articulated as clearly by NASA. And then they come up with a plan and a commitment to Kenyans. And again, you don't see that. You see vague terms, we will do this, we will do the other. So just in terms of readability, Charles, as you were saying, Jubilee's is somewhat
a bit there are talking points, there are things you can pick out and make references. If you want more details, you can now go through, but of course you know this and this and this is what they stand for. That's a bit lacking on the NASA the way the NASA manifesto is presented.
So that we've dealt with. Did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say, I think the Jubilee's document is a bit bulky. They're trying to put sort of an evaluation report, an annual report, the 5-year report, all in one document. It makes it very, very difficult to read. And then I think they're also too wordy. You know, like I said, something.
This is Jubilee, you said?
That's the Jubilee, whatever. I mean, of course, there's some level of organization compared to the NASA. And I was looking, for example, jobs. If you're a young person, the first thing you want to look at is, what are they saying about jobs? The Jubilee, you could pick it out, but for NASA, you have to keep digging through the document, and so it's.
But Jubilee also, you know, Charles says it's more reader friendly, but you can see that they recognize the task at hand, which is that they're going into an election and they want votes, and so you have an opening preamble, signed by the president, in which he talks about what they've achieved and why they've done things the way they have, and then says, on the basis of this, please vote for us. and NASA just kind of
moves into the
you know.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to appreciate is the fact that NASA is a coalition that is still trying to find its way within itself, and I think that's as they say, could be a typical case of too many cooks spoiled the broth. Maybe too many ideas, people have not worked together before, trying to gel just for this particular day. Maybe that's the reason why, as opposed to the Jubilee one, where you see, the truth is, the Jubilee one had a lot of order. Even though it's
the Jubilee explanations were given by cabinet secretaries who are hands-on people, who have been working on these things and who will be working on them. When it comes to NASA, there are these politicians who are told, now, since you, as a Kruto, you are involved, so do this. And as you said, it's like they were told an hour before. And you could see even them saying, so and so forgot this, so I need to explain this also. That was not very nice.
I remember, sorry, now that we are talking about the presentation, at the beginning, the mistress of ceremonies told the principals, now you can sit down. And they were struggling to find where they were going to sit.
Yeah, I think in terms of delivery, NASA didn't do very well, and the message is as good as the messenger. You know, I think they didn't deliver the message very well, and that could have some sort of implications in terms of people who are really looking at the launch of manifestos as a basis for them to, you know, we have quite a number of undecided voters, and so that could be a platform for them to pick on whom to vote for. So I think the delivery wasn't really well done. So I think both parties need to work on their communications. Jubilee, of course, is ahead when it comes to communication. I think NASA needs to put its act together, and we can't give them that benefit that they are sort of a coalition. CORD was a coalition too, but if you look at their manifesto, if you look at the way the manifesto was launched, was a lot better. So I think they just need to update.
So these are matters of style that we've addressed, and matters of style, NASA is lagging way behind. We come to matters of substance, and Kenyans say they're concerned about election-related violence, they're concerned about security. On that basis, which manifesto makes you feel more secure?
I think both manifestos touch on issues to do with security, both in terms of improving the welfare of disciplined forces, you know, police and others. I think that that is important in terms of reducing police to people ratio. The thing that shocked me,
clearly with the Jubilee Manifesto.
With the Jubilee Manifesto, CORD also tries to give a mention to that. What shocked me is that there's very little emphasis or mention of community policing, which I think is the way to go for countries that hope to really enhance their security, because you cannot have one police to one person. So how do you make sure that people are involved in policing? I think NASA yesterday tried to talk about moving from police force to police service, which was more of language, and if you look at the manifesto, there's nothing like that is mentioned.
In fact, what NASA did was to bring some clip of somebody who was trying to discredit the community police and say they don't even see them. You know, the which was negative.
Which is quite funny, because I think that goes to the extent of how much information do Wananchi have as far as community policing is concerned, because it's about them. But if you ask me, more or less what you asked Rafa, what are the pick-outs? To me, I didn't see anything about oil in the Jubilee Manifesto. Neither did I see anything about oil in the NASA Manifesto. Yet, we have just struck oil, and
it's been around for a while.
For the next 5 years, it's going to play a pivotal role in the economy of this country. How come none of these principal divides are talking about it?
But in terms of security, though, remember you talked about community policing. Who makes you feel more secure? Who would you entrust your security to? On the basis of the manifesto.
It's a difficult call to make. Difficult call to make, because I will take Jubilee like Raphael said, it's scorecard and promises. They promised a lot on security in 2013. They have achieved a bit, but like you saw in the papers yesterday, quite a number of quite a number of areas in the country still experiencing advance in security. So my worry is what they are saying. Is it practical? Are they going to be able to do it? As far as NASA is concerned, I have not seen them deal with security even in their own rallies. So I'm wondering how then are going to do it. Are they going to do it practically?
Okay. If you look at Jubilee, what they've done about security. First of all, they decided not to have police vehicles, to hire them out. The equipment they bought for the remote areas, like they want police have vehicles like the military. The reports are that they are not good at all.
They're called the APCs.
Yes, those APCs are not working. When you look at the aircraft for the military, they are supposed to be vehicles for farmers. You see, is that a part of corruption? Is that design? In fact, they say the vehicles they bought from China. They didn't have the money, so the Chinese gave them what they paid for, not the ideal ones. So that is a matter.
Who would you trust, though?
I don't trust any.
You don't trust either of them?
Maybe I haven't been trusting any of them.
It's seen a bit too much.
Yeah.
Economy, the high cost of living. We can't find unga in the shops. I know that I tried to find some last Friday. I did not. Who do you trust to ensure that our wages are enough to cater for us, look after our needs and services?
First of all, I was shocked that none of these political parties, I mean both Jubilee Party and NASA, talked about economic growth in terms of numbers. Remember the first, in 2013, the Jubilee coalition talked about economic growth by double digits. This time they didn't mention, so I think they're cautious because our economy is not growing at double digits, it's at 6%. So they're cautious not to put a figure because that is an important indicator. That could be a basis for, holding them accountable. NASA, on the other hand, also haven't mentioned anything in terms of how do they expect the economy to grow in the next 5 years. And that is where the catch is, because if the economy is not growing, if you do not have a target of economic growth, then how are you going to create these jobs that you're talking about? Because economic growth is what leads to job creation, and that makes most of us skeptical, like Mutegi would say, that they're just promises, because there's no target. It's just a promise in terms of activities that you're going to initiate, but then in terms of economic growth, there is nothing. NASA talks about sort of having diversified products, not just concentrating on certain areas. So like they're moving to creative economy, and they'll focus on a few other areas in terms of sort of having a dynamic economy. Jubilee, on the other side, again, it's difficult to trust them, because the last time, for example, they talked about they are going to ensure that they reduce the borrowing. The public debt should be lower. If you see the way the economy that they say is growing is a result of the public debt. So you're also wondering, do they really believe in those manifestos? Are they promising?
But they argue, remember, if you look at their manifesto, they argue that they're laying the foundation for transformation. And so we have had to borrow at the rate that they're borrowing in order to invest in the change that they hope and expect will come.
That explanation is great, but only if you promised that. If you look at 2013 Jubilee Coalition's manifesto, that was not what they promised. They didn't promise that they're going to cause transformation by borrowing. That is not. So they changed midstream, and so it makes it very difficult to know truly, do they believe in what they say, or maybe come 2019 they're going to change again and have something totally.
Is that a fair assessment, Charles?
Jubilee are very generous with figures in their manifesto.
This current one?
Yes. But you realized, as far as economic growth is concerned, they didn't give figures. That's quite telling, because they were so generous with figures in everything else except this. Why? COD, although Raphael says NASA, although Raphael says they didn't mention it, Musalia Mudavadi talked about a 7% growth. What waits to be seen is what they've put in place, other than the talk to achieve this.
It's odd, don't you think, Mutegi, that they shy away from talking about the economy in quantifiable terms when the statistics are actually available. You look at the Kenya Bureau of National Statistics, and they give us an overview of how we've been performing. We know that inflation is at an all-time high. The results are there. They also tell us how many jobs we've created. They even give us a breakdown of where those jobs were created, with the bulk of them being in the informal sector. Are both coalitions trying to be clever with Kenyans, trying to shy away from the difficult aspects of running a country by glossing over these things?
If you want to be elected, you want to talk about difficulties. You want to think about. You want people to think positive about you. That's why they are. In fact, there is an editorial in the Standard saying all these are lies, because they are telling us to do this without telling us how, without telling us how they get the money to do it. So it's a question of really trying to please the voter, and that's why these things come before vote.
And I would understand that with an incumbent, they want to defend their record. But I think Kenyans are also looking for leaders who will say, look, we promised 100%, we've achieved 60, the 40%, this is the reason why we haven't achieved it. I looked at the Jubilee Manifesto, which, like Charles says, it's quite some order. But you see promise, achievement, and then commitment again. You don't see promise, achievement, and then challenges, and then you commit again, because that is an honest leader who says, look, I told you guys I'm going to achieve 80, I only achieved 40%. The reason why I haven't achieved 40% is because of this and that. So throwing figures around, because you do not have to say we created 1 million jobs. Young people out there know truly they are unemployed. Even if you put 10 million jobs, if young people out there are unemployed, it doesn't matter the figures that you throw around. But if you tell them, look, we promised you 1 million jobs, we've created 200,000 jobs, 800,000 didn't come through because we reinvested in something else, they will understand. So I think leaders are good at making promises, but they behave like they are sort of witch doctors.
Not leaders, politicians.
Politicians, actually. They behave like, they do not make mistakes at all. So they only achieve, and then they keep committing. So I think.
So your advice to both main groupings would be what? Jubilee, be honest about your challenges.
Yes.
NASA, what?
NASA too. Tell us. Don't overpromise. NASA is.
Can they promise anything if even with they couldn't even manage to put a shadow cabinet together?
Yeah, we're a government in waiting, and with all that, even with the disorganization, they need to give us some promise, something we can hold them accountable on. Yeah, but I totally agree with you. They should have organized themselves like, have a shadow cabinet, a government in waiting. That way, if when Jubilee is releasing a budget at a certain time, they also release their parallel budget, I think, and we haven't seen that. I can
say if we were in power, this is what we would do
differently. And if you look at even the manifesto, but NASA is even going. It's like a political rally. It's a report of a political rally. They're even trying to criticize Jubilee in a manifesto. In a manifesto, you just state your intention. You don't start criticizing other people's. Your assumption is you haven't even seen those other manifestos. You're just stating your position. So I think they even went the route of, because they are constantly been criticizing Jubilee. So how
much credit would you give to NASA on this issue of inclusion, which broadens out into cohesion, because they go on about classifications of Kenyans as others, and so they recognize various other groups that had not been previously recognized, that they will ensure that indigenous languages have some sort of foothold in Kenyan society. Do they deserve any sort of credit for that?
I think their main pillar, if you look at the manifesto again, that is the first issue they talk about, inclusiveness. Last time the first issue was jobs. This time is inclusiveness. That shows how much they think they can rally Kenyans behind that particular issue. And of course, I think Jubilee has done quite a bit of disservice to itself and to many Kenyans by alienating other people and being seen, because politics is also about perception. By
alienating which other people? Who are you calling other people?
I would say, for example, many tribes, ethnic groups feel like they do not they are not included in positions. Young people feel like they are not involved in governance. They're just silent beneficiaries, silent recipients. It's a matter we've raised over and over. For example, when the president was forming the cabinet, we asked where are the youth. We see various appointments. We saw return of many politicians who didn't make it to qualify and all that. So I think the question of inclusiveness is an important one, and I think NASA has picked that it might work for them.
I think one of the pillars of NASA is that inclusiveness, because the Jubilee is seen as Kikuyus and Kalenjins, to put it blunt. So they want to be seen, they accommodate everybody. In fact, they have suggested that during the next time of identification, that people will not be identified from where they come from. Your ID will not say you are from wherever. You just
and they even talk about the ID issue, that certain communities find it difficult to get identity documents.
Exactly. And I think that to me, it's easier to believe NASA when it comes to inclusiveness than Jubilee.
I agree with what Mutegi and Raphael are saying. Remember when Raila Odinga, the presidential candidate, stepped onto the podium, one thing he mentioned is that under NASA government, the youth are going to get jobs regardless of your name. That is so telling, because millions of Kenyans youth are out there, they don't have job opportunities, and they have given in to this notion that because your name is like this, your name betrays you kind of statement. And so I think on inclusivity and national integration, they scored.
Excellent. We'll take a break now. This is Cheche, and we're live on Citizen TV, and we're unpacking the Jubilee and NASA manifestos this morning. Which better reflects your concerns and aspirations? Our SMS number is 22422, or you can reach us on Twitter. The hashtag is Cheche.